Miles Morales should not be in MCU Spider-Man 4, and I think it's pretty obvious as to why. So yes, I love Miles Morales, I love the Spider-Verse movies, and let's be honest, in the last 10 years or so, his comics have been better than Peter's as well. However, I do not believe that he would work in MCU Spider-Man 4. Rumors in the last few weeks or so have been reported by a leaker called Daniel RPK, who during the Endgame Infinity War era of Marvel leaks was probably one of the most reliable out there. Basically, he has leaked saying that Miles Morales will be appearing in MCU Spider-Man 4. Obviously, you still have to take what he says with a pinch of salt because Hollywood ebbs and flows all the time, things change, this might not end up even being true. However, from what we've heard, Sony does want to include Miles Morales in MCU Spider-Man 4. And with Amy Pascal and Sony Pictures developing the solo Miles Morales live-action movie, it wouldn't surprise me if they try and connect these two somehow, and maybe even use Tom Holland's fourth film as a backdoor pilot to the Miles Morales movie. However, I want to point out that this isn't the first time we've had rumors of Miles showing up in the fourth Spider-Man film. The first wave of rumors was about a year ago now, once again stating the same thing, and I believe if this does happen, we are in big trouble. I have three main causes for concern if Miles does actually end up showing up in this movie. Number one, now this probably isn't my biggest concern, but still quite worrying, and that's the fact that MCU Spider-Man 4 is already stuffed to the brim. Along with the Miles Morales rumors that we have been getting, Daniel RPK and Alex Perez, who is a writer for the Cosmic Circus, have both been reporting on the fact that Sony and Marvel are kind of having a bit of a disagreement about what Spider-Man 4 should actually be. Now, if you've been living under a rock, let me just really quickly explain what this disagreement is actually about. Essentially, Sony wants Spider-Man 4 to be a multiverse film, which would mean bringing back the likes of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, but it also could potentially mean throwing Tom Holland into their universes, or even crossing over with the Spider-Verse movies. Supposedly, Sony want to do this because they want to cash in on the success of Spider-Man No Way Home. After all, they are a business, and when they see something almost make $2 billion and become one of the most successful movies of all time, of course, they want to replicate that success. However, on the other hand, Marvel, specifically Kevin Feige and Tom Holland, want Spider-Man 4 to be a more grounded and personal story for Peter Parker, connecting mainly to the street-level story of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This obviously means the likes of Kingpin, Kate Bishop, Echo, Daredevil, etc. are all to be involved with whatever story Feige wants to do for Peter Parker. However, after those initial rumors, it was then stated by Alex Perez that apparently Sony and Marvel had come to an agreement on what the story should actually be. Now, you might be thinking, oh my god, that's great, success, right? Well, not so much. Because now, according to Alex Perez, the agreement that these companies have come to is that it's actually going to be a mix of both street level and multiversal elements, which means we could potentially see Kingpin being one of the main villains of the film, with Tobey and Andrew swinging in to help Tom Spider-Man save the day. Personally, I am not a fan of this because I think this will just be a complete mess. Why try and do both when you could just do one or the other? I believe doing one or the other is definitely much better than trying to do both at the same time. Now, once again, these are only rumors, so it may not end up being true, but we do have to remember Alex Perez, by the way, is the guy who leaked the entire plot of Madam Web and all the cast and all the characters and got it 100% spot on. So looking back, Alex Perez has a really good history of reliable information, especially with recent Spider-Man stuff. I wouldn't take his word as gospel, but it is pretty reliable. So why would Miles Morales not work in this film based off what I have just said? Well, essentially, the movie is already stuffed to the brim, as I said. If you're gonna have Kingpin, multiverse, Tobey and Andrew, Kate Bishop, Daredevil, all these different elements, and that's not even including Spider-Man characters like potentially Black Cat, potentially Ned Leeds, Zendaya coming back as MJ, Peter Parker himself. They might even throw White Tiger in there, who knows? And then if you throw Miles Morales on top of all of that, well then it's just stuffing it to the absolute brim. I mean, did we see what happened to Spider-Man 3? Did we see what happened to The Amazing Spider-Man 2? My first point was very long-winded, however, my second point is a little bit more concise, but I think personally a lot more concerning. And that is Tom Holland's Peter Parker has not had time to grow. People will disagree with me, but the Homecoming saga is now officially being treated as his origin story, and while I do think he went through an ideal amount of growth in those films, we still haven't seen a Spider-Man story with Peter Parker where he's this closely resembled to the comic version of the character since Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man 2. The MCU's take on the character was unique because he was very close with the likes of Iron Man and the Avengers, and his films influenced the larger universe, and the larger universe influenced his films, which is cool and all, but it's time we had Spider-Man on his own. It's time that we finally lean in on the idea that Peter has no friends. It's finally time that we realize Peter has no one to turn to, no one to relate to. It's time to tell that kind of Spider-Man story again, and No Way Home left it at the perfect place to do that. And yes, Miles Morales could be introduced as a background character or one of Peter's best friends, or maybe just a friend that he meets at college. However, if you're going to introduce Miles Morales into a Spider-Man movie, he's going to end up getting his powers. I do not see Sony introducing this character without him getting bit by a spider, or without Peter trying to mentor him in some sort of way. Now, don't get me wrong, I would really get behind Miles Morales being introduced into this movie as just a friend, or just a side character, and then slowly build him up as the trilogy goes on. However, like I said, if they're trying to introduce Miles into MCU 4, they are definitely going to give him his powers. And that's just going to take away from Peter's story. If you're going to throw another Spider-Man into Spider-Man 4, then there's definitely going to be some kind of mentor story going on there between Peter and Miles. And a mentorship is something that Peter's character doesn't need at this moment in time. He hasn't grown enough. He hasn't gone through enough development himself to be at that point where he could be mentoring a younger and less experienced Spider-Man. Because let's be honest, this Peter that we've got in the MCU is still very inexperienced. And I think adding Miles Morales, especially Miles with his powers, into MCU Spider-Man 4 would be complete character assassination for Peter Parker. Number 3. Now, this isn't as important as the last 2 points, but it's still relevant, so I'm going to talk about it. Please, for the love of God, just give Miles Morales his own solo film. If you want Miles Morales in live action, then do it. But don't sacrifice the story or the room for other characters in MCU Spider-Man 4 for Miles Morales to go in there and take a lot of the spotlight. Now, like I said, I love Miles Morales, but there is a time and place for him to have his live-action debut, and that is his own solo movie. Heck, Sony are even working on a live-action Miles Morales movie. Just have that be where he makes his debut. Don't do it in MCU Spider-Man 4 for the reasons I have just listed. Also, if you want to have this character be as fleshed out as humanly possible, his own film where he is the main character without Peter Parker trying to take half the spotlight or half the screen time is going to be the best way to go. So please, I beg, just leave this character out of Spider-Man 4. I don't think this movie needs him. Like I said, the only way that I think I would take Miles Morales in this movie is if he was a side character or if he didn't have his powers. But let's be honest, like I mentioned before, I don't think Sony are going to do that. I think if he does get introduced, it is going to be him getting introduced to get his powers. And that's not something that this trilogy, this franchise, this character, Peter Parker, needs at this moment in time. If you want to do Miles Morales in live action, cool. But do it in his own movie, because I think that's where both characters are going to succeed. I think if you try and put them in their own movie together without building one another up first, it's just going to be a complete mess, especially since MCU Spider-Man 4 looks like it's going to be another friggin' multiverse movie, which, God's sake, man, I can't be bothered. But either way, yeah, what do you think in the comments below? Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more Spider-Man content. This Saturday, I've got a Sins Past video coming, and I'm going to give my 2 cents on that comic book. Some of you, if you don't know, then, well, just brace yourselves. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace.